Are we live on YouTube? We are live on YouTube. Good morning, hello, and welcome to This Week in History, aka TWH. It's basically this date in history, except we're going over everything involving the whole week. Getting back going with all this stuff. But anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Starting on March 16th, 1641, General Court of Election declared Rhode Island a democracy and adopted a new constitution. You know, a lot of things, among many other things that people don't really realize is that the 13 colonies used to be individual, countries in and of themselves. And the whole thing about the United States, it took 10 some odd years before we got to that point. But like right here, we're talking about Rhode Island. You know, they're a democracy. They're adopting their own constitution and all that stuff. You know, really cool things. Moving on up to 1689, the 23rd Regiment of Foot, or Royal Welsh Fusiliers, was founded. In 2004, it merged with the Royal Regiment of Wales to form the Royal Welsh Regiment. So they're still around, kind of, sort of. Like, they merged into something else. But 1689, all the way to 2025, pretty cool. 1769, Louis-Antoine de Bougainville's expedition of 2 ships completed the first French circumnavigation of the world, arriving in Saint-Malo, France. This also carried the first woman to circumnavigate the world, Jean Bayer. So cool. All right. 1792, Denmark became the first nation to ban the transatlantic slave trade for financial reasons. This did not go into effect until 1803, causing a frenzy of activity among slave traders who even received financial support. An estimated 120,000 enslaved Africans were transported from Africa to the West Indies aboard vessels flying the Danish flag. Yikes. 1802, the first U.S. military academy at West Point was established through a congressional act. It opened on July 4th that same year. So, alright, West Point. 1802 as well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was established for the second time. And I wonder what happened to the first one. So, if anybody watching this, let us know in the comments section why this was a second time, what happened to the first one, why did they disband, that'd be cool. 1827, the first U.S. newspaper, Freedom's Journal, owned and operated by black U.S. citizens, began publishing in New York City. So was this the first ever U.S. newspaper, or was the first one by blacks, is the question.
I missed it. Could you recap it for me? I'm sorry.
So 1827, by the way, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are.
Golden Loon here.
First U.S. newspaper, the Freedom's Journal, owned and operated by black U.S. citizens, began publishing in New York City. So I'm wondering now, that can't be the first newspaper ever,
no, it's not.
In New York.
It's the first black.
Well, it just says first U.S. newspaper, Freedom's Journal, owned and operated by black U.S. citizens. So the way it's written...
It's written poorly, but it's got to be in reference to blacks.
That's what I think
1827 is way too late for a first paper.
Yeah, I agree. Here, let me get you back, get you fully on camera. Ah! No.
You got to watch my comment from time to time.
Yes.
If he looks over at me with this, "Are you kidding me?" I said something horribly wrong.
Well, no, don't let them know that, because then they'll know the sign. You just gave them ammo to come after. What the hell is wrong with you?
But they come after you, not me.
No, they'll go after you.
No, but I'm over here and I can go.
Yeah, but I can come after you.
Is that a baton?
It's a comb.
Did you see the thing about the girl whacking the
oh, yeah.
the baton?
Yeah, there's a smacked her and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's claiming victim.
Wow.
Like she's been claiming, she's been saying, oh, white supremacy maybe
she
do
got
that
arrested
or something.
for assault, I know.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah,
anyways, big time. Anyways, let's move on.
1867, Joseph Lister first outlined the discovery of antiseptic surgery in an article in the Lancet. Ooh.
Antiseptic. What? Antiseptic. I know the word.
Antiseptic, so you don't get infections and such.
Okay.
That's
a major breakthrough.
Yeah. 1871, the first fertilizer law was enacted. That sounds like a shit law.
That stinks.
Yeah. 1876, Nellie Saunders and Rose Harlan fought the first female boxing match in New York. So that's pretty cool. So.
Female boxers, huh?
Yeah. And speaking of, you missed it, but we spoke about the first woman to circumnavigate the globe.
Oh.
In a boat.
In a boat?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Amelia Earhart or something.
No. There's a first woman to circumnavigate the world It was in she was just a passenger, but it just so happened to be there. And
Well, that doesn't count. I wonder if she paid her fare.
well, I don't think she was a stowaway. So. What else do we got here? 1882, U.S. Senate ratified the Geneva Convention of 1864, legitimizing the International Red Cross and the American Red Cross. Oh. So Geneva Convention of 18... you think about that Geneva Convention, isn't that like out of like World War II or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The Geneva Convention was different peace things for... Yeah, I think it was World War II.
Yeah, but
what is this?
Well, this is the previous Geneva Convention, and
So you telling me there's 2 Geneva Conventions? I can't believe that.
Well, there's a lot of Paris treaties, like the Paris Treaty that ended the American Revolution.
Okay.
Like there's like 40, 50 Paris because it's a convention signed in Geneva.
Okay, I'll go for that.
Yeah.
See, I've learned something today.
Yeah, that's why I said the Geneva Convention of 1864 to not be confused with the one after World War II.
Yeah.
Because there's several Treaty of Versailles out there as well. Like, the one we know is the one after World War I.
Now that you bring it up, I'd really like to know what the wording of the Geneva Convention after World War II is all about. What is that actually about?
Well,
you don't have to look it up now.
Well, then let us know in the comment section, and I'll forward
Fill
it to
me
him.
in, because I go, I know what the Geneva Convention, but then I go to say what it is, and I really, really don't know.
Yeah. But just, let's see here. Treaty of Paris. As I was saying, Treaty of Paris, 1783. This is the
there you go.
The normal
They're all
one.
1783.
Well, no, it's talking about the same one. I'm trying to, let's see if this, let me
all
figure this.
All treaty Paris.
Treaty,
that's all about the one.
Yeah, this is this one. Oh well. You get my point, though.
Yes, I do.
Anyway, moving on up, 1900, Arthur Evans rediscovered the Bronze Age city of Knossos in Crete, home of the legendary Minotaur. Because they believe that, now I may be wrong with this. I think the Minotaur is more of a recent thing, or I don't know, because of the layout of the city was a maze, and when they archaeologied it out of the ground. That's a really bad way to put that, but you get my points.
Yeah.
It was a maze, and they believed that that was the labyrinth, and then then the Minotaur is in the labyrinth.
Okay.
So I don't know much about that specific mythology.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's corny. That's like it's like a triple entendre joke right there. So that joke has layers. 1907, and I put a couple of these in here just for
Thank
you.
I'm sure you have.
First-class cricket game between New South Wales and Western Australia. All right.
Cricket!
Yeah.
Cricket snuck in here?
Well, aren't we on cricket? Or do we go with mint? We went with mint. Our phones.
Oh, we went with Mint.
Yeah,
Mint
but we were
Mobile.
looking at cricket.
We just gave him an advertisement.
Yeah.
Really reasonable. I'm really happy with him.
Well,
Once we got him.
Yeah, well, it was... That's a whole conversation. 1915, Federal Trade Commission organized, so the FTC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Until you said the letters. Holy
Yeah.
cow!
Yeah.
I know the letters, but
Yeah.
what does that tell you?
Well, we think in abbreviations, that's for sure.
Oh, we do big time. When it comes to government, everything's abbreviated. Initials.
Now, here's something interesting. 1 year later, in 1916, the U.S. and Canada signed a migratory bird treaty. What? Wow. What the heck? What? Migratory bird? Oh, we're not going to hunt these birds? What does this entail? How do you make a government document off of a natural event?
I remember when it was signed and the treaty was made, but I can't remember what I read about it.
Well, let me do a surface level scratch on this
that went
article.
right over your head. I'm old.
Well, I mean, I already knew that.
I read it in 1916.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been around since then. And were you making
What is that? No, seriously, what is this?
I'm trying to find it.
Obviously, it's about birds flying into your country.
Is environmental treaty between Canada and the U.S. It was originally signed August 16th, 1916 by the U.S. and U.K., entering into force on December 6th, 1916. It has since been amended several times. Okay, that's cool.
It's got to be something about migrating down south, obviously, for winter. So
but why is this government?
I don't know.
I guess protecting him?
Something like that. That's what I would guess.
Maybe, if you shot them, you get a fine or something? Like,
Yeah.
Well, there's this. You can find this migratory
Like-
bird treaty.
Like the Canadian duck, don't shoot it. It's got to come home.
The treaty led to important environmental legislation being passed in each of the two countries in order to implement the terms of the treaty. But what
They're
is?
not telling us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they'll tell us somewhere in there, but we don't have
Yeah.
the time to.
So I'm staying with my version.
1922, Egypt achieved independence from Britain, but British troops remained. Oh, but,
That's not good.
Well,
Why aren't you getting out?
they did get out eventually.
Eventually, I know.
Yeah.
I know. They probably stayed, as the
A
Brits would
precaution.
say, for a peaceful transformation.
Well, how
so
many
someone
times?
doesn't from the outside come over and take over government.
Well, how many times have we stayed in a country after?
And are still in some countries.
Yeah.
We're still in Germany.
Yeah. We're not in Afghanistan though.
No.
Thank you, Biden.
We even gave up the military. Supposedly we were going to keep that military.
Yeah,
base.
well, we gave them so much, arms and armor, munitions,
billions of dollars worth
Dude,
of
what
stuff.
people don't realize, it's like okay, they have all of this equipment. That's cool. They can't replicate it. They can't maintain it.
No.
That's not the point. They can sell it to China and
Yeah,
Russia,
sell
who
it.
can, and then our technological edge is diminished, and then soon it's just a numbers game, which they have more of, and we lose.
But it was even little things like, you don't think of like night goggles?
Oh yeah, in the
You know,
night
that-
vision goggles.
That was a big advantage for us when we were there.
Oh yeah.
Now they had thousands of them.
Anyway, moving on up to 1926, Robert H. Goddard launched the first liquid-fueled rocket. This went 184 feet or 56 meters. That's pretty big. That has to be the first rocket ever, because it wasn't until later, I believe, that we discovered or we started implementing solid fuel because it doesn't slosh, So I think this is the first rocket ever launched. Period. Rocket science, 1926. That's pretty major right there.
Huge. And early, I might add.
Yeah, well,
Really early.
see, well,
For what you think about.
we say this all the time. Oh, this is early, that's early. Is it early, or are we so indoctrinated by being backwards in technology that something from 100 years ago, which came out 100 years ago, it happened, why is it still amazing us? Why are we not that much farther? Why are we caught in this?
No, we're pretty far. We're just trying to timetable something back. Say, oh, they had that back then.
But why is it so amazing? It happened.
I know. It
But-
just surprises me because my
Yeah.
perception of
Yeah.
1926 was barely driving a car, which they had cars,
Yeah.
obviously. But that's my perception of it, And
Yeah.
you go, how are they firing rockets? But rockets have been around a long time.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's almost ready for World War II, so it's not. It's very conceivable that,
well,
that's what you should think.
Well, not only the Germans use rockets, well, we all know about the
This-
V-2 and everything,
yeah.
but Russia, they had those rocket trucks, rockets. I guess, well, this is not the first.
Mobile rockets is what you're trying to say? No.
Yeah, no, they
On
had
the
rocket
back of a
trucks.
truck?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Hold on a second, and let me bring this up really quick. Ecosia, I'm on Ecosia. World War II, Soviet rocket trucks. The Katyusha, this guy here. This was
Wow.
World War II.
Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know?
Okay. I had no clue they had those.
Yeah.
But you know what? Thinking 1926, but that's what we do when we think back at history. We flatline it.
Yeah.
We don't think about what was going on in history at that time. We just flatline it as a group of old age things. And wow, they had rockets. Of course they did. This is what, 5 years before, maybe 10 years before World War II. Maybe started
World
in
War
30
II,
something.
39. So
Oh,
this
it started
was
in 39. That
yes.
late. I thought it was 36.
no. Germany invaded Poland in September 1st, 1939.
Okay.
Conjunctly with the Soviet Union, but we don't pay attention
Yeah.
to them for some reason. But yeah,
Well,
no.
they ended up on our side. That's why.
Yeah. Let me play this really quick here.
Which they never should have been.
1 second. This is a hilarious video. Like, I think these are Cold War era, but this is basically the thought process of rocket trucks. Terrifying. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah.
Moving on up to 1934, Academy Award Gold Statuette was first called an Oscar in print by Sidney Skolsky. So it wasn't always called an Oscar, it was just like the Gold Statuette. This is when the first
It
time...
really, it doesn't say gold. I guess it does.
The Academy Award Gold Statuette is
Okay.
first called an Oscar.
Yeah, is when it was first called an offer.
Yeah.
But was it called gold statuette?
Well,
Or
I don't
it
know.
just didn't called anything?
I guess it's just the award, the
Yeah.
Academy Award.
Yeah, it just didn't have a name.
Yeah.
And the winner goes to, and they hand
yeah.
him a gold statuette.
1935.
Wasn't Oscar something major in films and everything, a producer or something?
I don't know. I mean, there's well.
Let's look up, where did the name Oscar come from for the...
Where did... claimed the name derived from her observation that the backside of the statuette looked like that of her husband, Harmon Oscar Nelson. Oh, okay, so...
Something just silly, so...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there you go. 41, Russian composer and pianist Dmitri Shostakovich received the Stalin Prize, and that's pretty big because this guy is the one man that Stalin couldn't kill. He was the musician of the people. His works were played in Stalingrad during that siege to keep the morale up.
Huh.
Because they would not let the citizens be evacuated, so that way the soldiers fought that much harder to save those lives. They would not evacuate the city. You know, there's so much stuff behind the whole siege of Stalingrad that people don't realize.
The story's under the story.
But because that he was the voice of the people, if Stalin did anything to him, he would lose his country. Because because he's the voice. Stalin's the leader, but Dmitri was the music.
So what is the Stalin Prize? He received it, but what is it?
That's the Stalin Prize. It's.
I know the name now, but what is it?
What was the Stalin Prize? Let's see here. It's State Stalin Prize in Science and Engineering and in Arts. So the arts would cover him. He was a composer.
Okay.
1952, 1,870 millimeters of rain in Cielos, Island of Reunion, current world record, as of what this says. 1,870 millimeters. That's like millimeters to inches. Converts. Okay, let's see here. 73 inches. That's pretty deep. 1224, 4 feet, 5 feet. Hold on a second. Inches. Oops. You know what? Oh well. Let's just move on. 1968, General Motors produced its 100 millionth automobile, an Oldsmobile Tornado. Yeah. 68, the My Lai massacre occurred when U.S. soldiers killed about 400 unarmed Vietnamese civilians, one of the most controversial incidents of the Vietnam War. There's a lot of awful stuff happening in there.
Yeah.
You don't know who's an enemy combatant and who's an innocent civilian. We ran into a lot of that during the Iraq War and all that stuff recently. Like you don't know who. And even if you saw someone walking around with an AK or something, you can't do anything until he shoots at you first. Okay, so what do I have to do? Die? That's kind of... You're there for a war. You see somebody with a weapon that's not part of your team. Well, take them out. It's not hard.
Yeah.
1972, John Lennon and Yoko Ono are served with deportation papers by U.S. Immigration Department. Good, get them the hell out of here.
What'd you ever have against John Lennon?
No, Yoko Ono, the screeching, chihuahua. Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's the one who took out a hit on Lennon here, so she can collect the insurance and all that stuff. Hey, she would not give their child Lennon's records. He had to buy, her own son had to buy his dad's, collection from his own mom at an auction. You can't tell me that there's anything more evil than that. She was an evil. She's disgusting. 1977, U.S. President Jimmy Carter pled for a Palestinian homeland. Well, they had one until it was taken. So, 88, chemical attack on Kurdish town of Halabja by Iraqi forces killed 5,000 civilians. Largest ever chemical weapons attack that we know of. So, that's crazy.
Chemical weapon. Ooh,
yeah.
That's nasty.
Yep. 1995, Mississippi House of Representatives formally abolished slavery and ratified 13th Amendment of U.S. Constitution. Well, better late than never. 1995.
Yeah.
That's when they formally abolished slavery, Mississippi.
Formally, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, that's shocking.
It's not like there were slaves there, but why did it take so long to find, just pass it? You know.
I think we are just now declaring the United States of America, the official language is English. I believe
Yes,
that's what they're putting
good.
together now.
Now-
Up until today, we've had no official language, so that's
Yeah.
a shocker too. Not that it had anything to do with this, but
Well,
I'm
that
not
thing.
shocked.
Well, I mean, like, you know,
that it
I'm
got-
all.
I mean, there was obviously the federal laws prevailed, so there was no slavery allowed, but
Yeah.
that they didn't get around to it till 95 is shocking.
Yeah. 2014, voters in Crimea overwhelmingly voted to leave Ukraine and rejoin Russia, and amid international condemnation of its design.
Now, I didn't realize Crimea voted to go back to Ukraine.
Yeah, no, to Russia.
To Russia, I mean,
Yeah, well, you know, they don't
Leave
want
Ukraine.
Zelensky, who was shoehorned in by, you know, like
Was
back in
I
stuff.
don't
and-
think Lewinsky was there in 14, was he? Unless he just got in or something.
I don't know. Zelensky.
Zelensky. What date did he come to power? Quick question.
When
Just real
did Zelensky become president of Ukraine? 20th of May.
19.
Yeah.
That's about right.
Okay. Huh. Moving on up, 2016, U.S. college student Otto Warmbier was sentenced to 15 years hard labor for trying to steal a political poster in Pyongyang, North Korea. That's the guy who eventually was given back to us, but he was like so wrecked that he died later. Just for taking a poster. And it wasn't like he was defacing a poster. He liked the poster. He was giving them a compliment. And they killed him. In 2019, a beach dead whale found to have 88 pounds of plastic inside it, including 40 pounds of plastic bags in Navity, Philippines.
God, I hate that.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking more about plastic. And that was last Sunday. So moving on up to March 17th. With 432, St. Patrick, aged at about 16, was captured by Irish pirates from his home in Great Britain and taken as a slave to Ireland. Traditional date. Oh, but you know he doesn't matter because he's white, huh?
Ireland.
But you know they were white slaves. Nobody talks
Well,
about
of course
that.
they were like slaves.
Yeah, but nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about it, but
because it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't, enhance the narrative.
The narrative, yeah.
So,
No.
1762, first St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1775, the Transylvania Land Company, headed by Richard Henderson, bought most of Kentucky through a treaty signed with Cherokee chiefs at Sycamore Shoals on the Watauga River. This later was declared illegal. But can you
There are a
imagine?
lot of questions in that statement.
Yeah. Well, it was illegal, so it's not valid.
Yeah, I know.
But a company buying like half of a state or most of a state, from the
Yeah.
natives, like a lot of wacky stuff.
But you go
happened.
back to, and I refer to the New York Treaty that they had with the Indians for a bunch of beads, as the
the
history
Manhattan
says.
buying
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And you go, well,
It was actually
there was
$1
no
million
concept
or
for them
something.
owning land, so they just
Yeah.
figured they took the beads and laughed at them.
Yeah.
They didn't know what it really meant to their
It
tribes.
meant that they can no longer be there.
That's right.
Well,
But
they found out.
so I wonder if this is the same type of situation. Hey, we'll sell you
Yeah.
all the land you want because they don't have any concept of owning it.
Yeah, they
No
thought
concept.
they'd pull one over on
Yeah,
us.
yeah, dumb.
Yeah,
white
yeah,
man, you know,
yeah. Oh,
until they found out who had most of the guns.
yeah. 1778. Speaking of guns, Britain declared war on France due to French allegiance with the U.S. So that's 2 years
Oh,
after.
yeah.
But once France, realized who was winning, then they came in because France is right there. If they allied with us earlier, then they could have, had their teeth kicked in by Britain, who's right there. Britain's closer to them than they were to us.
True.
And if they were winning against us, then they'd certainly win against France. So,
Yeah, but not with two fronts going.
well, I mean, if they were already winning here, then they could just keep France in this pocket, keep up as that
Yeah.
pocket,
Yeah.
So,
France played a crucial role in our independence.
it's kind of funny. Without France, there wouldn't have been a U.S., and without a U.S., there wouldn't have been a France.
Yeah.
And that's because they got the idea of their revolutions because of our revolution. And because Britain lost us, they still had to put all their prisoners somewhere, not on their island, so then they started
Australia.
going to Terra Australis, later renamed Australia.
Yeah.
So, so if it wasn't for, France, there wouldn't have been an Australia, by extension.
Well, that's a shame. There's an Australia. There's not all good news here. Do we really need the Aussies? See, there's the look, folks. I knew it would come up sometime in the show.
Wow. They have to deal with spiders and snakes and crocodiles and no, not you. And drop bears, and then you're gonna crap on them? Poor Australia, man. Moving on up to 1845, Bristol man Henry Jones patented self-raising flour. Pretty cool to make bread.
Oh, yeah.
Self-raising. 1845 as well, the rubber band was patented by Stephen Perry of London.
Woo!
Yeah, the rubber band.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Rubber bands, so it's a weird thing, though, rubber bands, if you think about it.
Yeah, and they don't sound that well either. A rubber band.
I got it.
Boing, doing, doing. 1861, Italy is unified into a single kingdom under Victor Emmanuel II following the campaigns led by Giuseppe Garibaldi.
Giuseppe.
Yeah, Giuseppe Garibaldi, because Italy has come together twice. The first time was under the Roman Empire, and then after the Western Roman Empire collapsed and everything, it went back into like little city-states, little pockets, everything, and then Giuseppe Garibaldi was ahead of this. But Italy unified into a single kingdom under Victor Emmanuel following the campaigns led by Giuseppe Garibaldi.
Is that what they call it? Was a kingdom?
Yes.
United Kingdom?
Well, no, it was under a single kingdom. So under one rule rather than a whole...
Single, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 1868, the postage stamp canceling machine patent issued. So, like, I guess,
when you get that red deal across the deal, it's been used.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
1871, National Association of Professional Baseball Players organized. And look at that, baseball hyphenated.
Yeah, union.
Yeah. 1876, British high jump champion Marshall Jones Brooks cleared 1.83 meters at Oxford, England for unofficial world record, thought to be the first leap over 6 feet.
Okay, so now they're going 7, 8, whatever it is. Unbelievable. Thanks to the, I think it's Frosby Flop.
Oh yeah, you
go went over.
Yeah,
you used to go front.
You used to go over like these are your legs. You go like
this.
this.
You go face first.
Or you go.
Now you go back first.
And now you do the twist.
Yeah.
And
you get much higher. Frosby Flop or something.
Yep.
Something like that.
It changed the game, like how the whole 3-pointer thing.
Completely. They went up like 1.5 feet or something. Over 6 feet, then they're jumping over 7 feet immediately.
Yeah. 1877, Australia's English-born all-rounder Billy Midwinter completed Test cricket's first 5-wicket haul, 5-78 in the first ever Test match versus England in Melbourne. And as I say, if it sounds like English, you read it verbatim, but you're still confused and you feel like you had a stroke, don't worry. It's not a medical emergency. It's just cricket.
Just cricket.
That's
2 of them.
Yes. There might be more. I'm not sure. I try to put one in a day just to.
No.
Well, just to piss you off. It's so
You're
fun.
there. You're already there. You don't need any more.
1884, John Joseph Montgomery made the first glider flight at Otay, California. Glider. So. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if he started the Montgomery Ward store.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think so either.
1898, John Philip Holland achieved successful test run for the first modern submarine off Staten Island, submerging for 1 hour 40 minutes.
Wow.
Modern submarine. There was the Hunley, in
during
the Civil War.
Revolution there.
Civil War.
Civil War. Yeah.
Well, the Revolution had the turtle. Which was just like
one man something.
Well, it was basically like a keg, and you had like a little propeller for going up and down.
That's
little
right.
propeller going
That's
forward or back.
Yeah.
The Hunley was a long tube thing, and that didn't work out too well either. Moving on up to 1905, Albert Einstein finished his scientific paper dealing his quantum theory of light, one of the foundations of modern physics.
Whoa.
Pretty big right there.
Yeah.
21, Dr. Mary Stopes opened Britain's first birth control clinic in London.
Ah.
Yep.
Sounds like that's for abortions then?
Birth control, not abortions. So,
That's
prophylactics.
gonna control birth.
Well, no, I mean, you can take a pill, it's a store, maybe they're selling pills, condoms, other prophylactics.
Okay, what is that? Let's look it up. To me it says abortions.
Well, abortion is after, Okay, let's see here. Campaigner for eugenics? Oh, that's not good. Eugenics is never good. But, of course, birth control and, everything along that aspect, it's
So
a
what is
subject.
eugenics?
Eugenics is what the Nazis did.
Yeah.
Eugenic feminism this is eugenic feminism. But What is eugenics? Let me look this up. Eugenics. Eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. So basically,
okay.
you know what the Germans, what the
Yeah,
Nazis were doing,
it was the
eugenics
They
program.
want a pure,
Yeah.
what do you call it?
Race. They wanted the Aryans and all that
Aryan,
stuff.
thank you.
Well, birth control, abortion,
Yeah.
and now with the ability to go in and tinker with the fetus while it's still in there to get it designed. That's eugenics.
Yeah.
We're no better than the Nazis. So that's why I mentioned earlier this is a whole conversation, because as soon as you start getting into birth control and all that stuff, that goes down the rabbit hole. Where is the line in the sand where you say this is good, this is not?
Okay.
So 1927, U.S. government doesn't sign League of Nations Disarmament Treaty. Huh.
Oh, that is a
Yeah.
Why?
Disarmament Treaty. They don't sign.
I know.
Despite being a neutral nation, are always trying to be neutral.
Why wouldn't we sign a disarmament? We didn't like something. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
1930, construction began on the Empire State Building, the world's first skyscraper of 100-plus stories on Fifth Avenue in New York City. We've been in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we have.
1943, physician William J. Kolff performed the world's first hemodialysis using his artificial kidney machine. However, the treatment was unsuccessful and the patient died in the Netherlands. But it's the first try. Not everything is a success.
Oops.
Well. But hey,
sucks for him.
Yeah, it does. But from there, we've practiced it, and it's saved how many lives?
Oh, I know.
So I mean, Angie, I used to drive to her dialysis.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Angie. 1950, element 98, Californium was announced. I had no idea there was an element named after our state. Californium, element 98.
What is Californium?
I don't know, but it sounds really stupid. Let's look this up here. Here, give me a Kosia. Californium is a synthetic chemical element. It has a symbol CF and atomic number 98. It was first synthesized in 1950. Okay, yada yada yada. But what is it? It is an acidinide element, the sixth transuranium element to be synthesized. Uranium.
Synthesize means create.
Yeah, it's fake. Yeah. Well, I mean,
I had no idea elements were created.
it has a Oh, yeah. There's a lot of artificial elements, like the periodic table of elements.
They're not artificial.
Well,
man-made. Let's put it that way.
It's an element.
Yes.
Like, it has the second highest atomic mass of all the elements that have been produced in amounts large enough to see with the naked eye after Einsteinium. It was named after the university in the U.S. state of California.
Okay.
So,
after the university and the state.
yeah, well, California, the
University of California, yeah.
1957, Dutch ban on Sunday driving lifted. What did they have against driving on Sunday? In 1957.
Hey, I remember, for sure in 1950, none of the stores were open. Everything was closed on Sundays.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to drive?
Well, that's just one step further.
Yeah.
And where was it again?
Dutch, Netherlands.
Dutch, okay.
1960, U.S. President Eisenhower formed anti-Castro exile under the CIA. And it's telling me, discuss this with Loon, how we helped Castro overthrow, who was it, Valdez? Or whatever. We helped Castro.
Yeah, yes, we did. We supported. He got all the funding and the organization. They did it all in our country, ready to go.
Yeah, and then we turn around
and then he turned on us.
Yeah.
Well, he declared himself a communist.
Yeah.
Which was totally unacceptable for... No. Without us, he would have never overtaken that power.
Yeah.
From, I can't remember his name. Batista.
Batista, not Valdez. So... 1966, U.S. submarine located missing a hydrogen bomb on the Mediterranean seafloor. Oh, that's good.
Wow.
Yeah. And do you know what a broken arrow is?
No.
Broken arrow, meaning. There's apparently a movie. Here we go. Broken arrow was a call for all available combat aircraft to it. Well, that's something else. Broken arrow. Oops. Nuclear. Then click this. There you go. Broken arrow. Apparently there's multiple. Here we go. United States military nuclear incident terminology. It's called a broken arrow. Why won't it just tell me? Okay, here we go. Broken arrow refers to an accidental event that involves nuclear weapons, warheads, or components that does not create a risk of nuclear war. These include accidental or unexplained nuclear explosion, non-nuclear detonation or burning of a nuclear weapon, radioactive contamination, lost in transit of nuclear asset with or without its carrying vehicle, jettisoning of a nuclear weapon or nuclear component, public hazard, actual or implemented. The U.S. Department of Defense has officially recognizes at least 32 broken arrow incidents from 1950 to 1980. So that's just in those 30 years, there's 32. Well, what about 1980 on up?
Yeah.
So this is one that they found. There's a lot. There's a handful of nuclear bombs that are just out there. Like there's one off of the coast of Georgia. They've never found it. You know, it's just out there.
Well, the broken arrow reminds me of an old joke.
What?
The old man runs on a red light on a red arrow.
No. Don't say that joke.
Why?
Because it could be racially insensitive.
I don't think so.
You going by the red arrow joke?
And the cop pulls him over?
Yeah.
And he says...
No.
Okay.
I don't want to get canceled. So, 1973, Queen Elizabeth II opened a new London Bridge, not to be confused with the Tower Bridge that people thought, whoever bought the original London Bridge and transported it to Arizona. Haven't we been on it?
No. We haven't been in that area.
Okay. But it's in Arizona, the original London Bridge.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Tower Bridge that everybody, thinks.
And the funny thing is,
that's what they thought
they
were
actually
buying.
thought they were buying the Tower Bridge.
Yeah. Nope.
That's the iconic bridge.
Yeah. 1992, South African referendum of white voters on an end to apartheid after 2/3 vote for an end to the system. Good. Get rid of that.
Yeah.
2014, the Republic of Crimea was declared. All right. 2019, Facebook removed 1.5 million videos of the Christchurch mosque shootings in the first 24 hours after the attack, although only 1.2 million blocked at upload. Why are they censoring that?
Is that in Russia? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Christchurch is in New Zealand.
Oh.
At least the one I know of. So.
Okay, I'm not familiar
with
it.
But why would you block that? You're trying, like, if anything, you'd think that they would broadcast that and be, oh, look at all the people who hate Muslims. Let's attack the people who hate the Muslims. Blah 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 blah. You think that they use that to fuel some political thing. No. And then 2020, Chad began repaying a $100 million debt to Angola with cattle as more than 1,000 cows arrived in Luanda. All right, so repaying, which, by the way, I don't remember what country it was, but I think it was like Ethiopia or whatever. But they some African nation gave us like a herd of cattle after 9/11. It's like you're hurting. Here's a herd of cattle. Which I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like like people would be oh, look at this poor ass country. Oh, they think cattle is like it's not the gift, it's the gesture.
Yeah.
That they're dirt poor, giving a gift to a nation that is beyond their comprehension of wealth, but it's still the right thing to do. That's cool. Moving on up to March 18th and 1314. Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, was burned at the stake by King Philip IV of France. A lot of people what happened to the Knights Templar is just so awful because they went on crusades on behalf of the papacy and all that stuff. Get the Holy Land, and as a result, basically the entirety of Europe racked up an enormous debt to them. But instead of paying them off, they made up crap and called them heretics and then killed them all and all that stuff rather than paying their debt. And then so they went into hiding and formed the Freemasons.
Yeah. So, also, they were, the kings or whoever were threatened by them because they had so much power.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be overthrown quite easily.
Well, they had so much power and so much influence that, the word, like what a temple is? That's why they have the word. Because of Templars. Yeah. Temple.
Yeah.
The Templars came first. Temple, the terminology, came because of the Templars. That's how powerful they were. 1325, according to legend, Tenochtitlan was founded on this date on an island in what was then Lake Texcoco, in the Valley of Mexico. which is today Mexico City, Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So, Tenochtitlan, I think it was the Aztecs was their capital. I don't know. I know about the Aztecs, the Mayan, and the Inca were three different civilizations,
Yeah.
but they're in that area. I don't have the distinguished
Timelines.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of them was as close as like the 1600s before they disappeared.
Ah.
The Mayans or whatever, the Aztecs.
The last
Inca.
ones?
Yeah.
They were the last ones, I think, the Mayans.
I
weren't they?
know. I think they were more in the middle. I don't know. I need to learn more about Mesoamerican history. I love Mesoamerican history. Their architecture, is awesome. 1673, Lord Berkeley sold his half of New Jersey to the Quakers.
Huh.
Wow. So here we go. Like, another whole
Yeah.
state. We were talking about something a couple days prior. That was invalidated. The guy selling
The
Kentucky
Quakers
or
owned
whatever.
New Jersey?
Well, half of it.
Yeah.
For a while. 1766, Britain repealed the Stamp Act, which had caused outrage in colonial America and helped lead to the American Revolution. Too little, too late. You should have never, done that.
Yeah.
The Stamp Act.
I don't
The Stamp Act basically,
It was a tax.
if something was stamped, you had to pay extra for it. They literally
You had to pay a
stamped
tax.
everything
Yeah.
just to get more money. I mean, hell, they had window taxes. They taxed you for how many windows you had.
Yeah,
That's
I've
why
heard
a
that.
lot of older European buildings, you see their windows bricked up because they didn't want to pay the tax for having a window. Isn't everything? Talk about wanting to scrape the barrel of every penny you can nickel and dime from people.
Still
Good Lord.
doing it today.
Yeah. 1818, U.S. Congress approved the first pensions for government service. 1834, 6 farm labourers from Tolpuddle, Dorset, England, were sentenced to be transported to Australia for forming a trade union. So, 1850, Henry Wells and William Fargo formed American Express
Wells
in
Fargo.
Buffalo. Yep, Wells Fargo. So that's interesting. American Express.
Yeah.
The credit card was formed by bankers. Well, of course.
Yeah.
Because debt creates wealth.
Yeah.
So,
First card I remember is the Diners Club.
Yes, that was the actual first thing, and that was specifically just for the upper echelons, so they don't have to pay. They had good credit,
Yeah.
so they would pay later for their meal. They swipe the card,
Yeah.
and then
Can you imagine a time, and I do because I lived it, of no plastic whatsoever? You go to the market, you either had cash or wrote a check.
yeah,
That's it. Diners was the first I remember come along,
Yeah.
and it was fairly recent because I was a late teen, early
but then
adult.
what was American Express in 1850? I mean, we know that as a credit card, but what was it
Well,
before credit cards then?
Probably a bank. I don't know.
Maybe it was a bank or a company, and then they
Yeah.
used that to make their credit cards
Yeah.
later. Huh. 1878, the city of Anaheim in California incorporated for the second time.
Second time.
Second time.
Didn't hold the first
What
time.
happened?
I don't know.
Like,
Did you have an expiration date on that baby to begin with?
I don't know.
That's weird.
That is weird.
Second time.
Yeah.
Well, it made the headlines.
Yeah.
That's how weird it is.
1881, Barnum and Bailey Circus,
Woo-hoo.
traveling as the greatest show on earth, debuted at Madison Square Garden in New York City following the merger of two existing circus groups. Yeah.
Yeah, Barnum and Bailey. They were competitors
Yeah.
back in the
But
day.
then one ate the other.
Yeah, well, they both were diminishing returns, so they
Yeah.
joined to make something
To
viable.
get something, yeah.
To make some,
Yeah.
they're both going to go out of business or come together and survive.
Yeah. 1890, first U.S. state naval militia organized in Massachusetts. Naval militia? A naval militia.
Yeah.
So, like, did they just have, like, man of wars with cannons on standby or something? Like, how do you naval militia?
Something to do with it. They're out in the water.
Well, yeah. 1891, and actually, let's see if we have any comments here. Nope, none there. And where's this? Here we go. Oh, RMG relaunch. Yeah, he's doing good. So we're doing well as well. He answered the question before we could even answer it.
What was that? What was the question?
Well, the question would be, I see that RMG relaunch is here. Hello. Oh, hey, how you doing?
Oh.
I'm doing good. So he answered the question before we got to answer.
I gotcha. Okay. Awesome.
Well, glad to hear it, RMG. 1909, let's see. Actually, no, before that, 1891, Britain was linked to the continent by telephone. So did the rest of Europe.
Oh, yes,
By telephone.
yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
which, like the undersea cables and all that stuff, internet and everything, like they're so fragile. And like the internet, the whole world, not just to communicate, to watch YouTube videos, but to do banking, to do anything in this world, through cables, and all it takes is a rogue anchor or like sharks. Some cables, their electric fields attract sharks, and sharks bite into them.
Oh,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
Because it's passing electricity.
yeah,
through it.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah. And so just the whole world is literally hanging by a thread,
Yeah.
and it could snap at any moment, and people don't realize just how.
That was such a feat.
Yeah.
Linking, continental by telephone.
Yeah.
Continent.
Well,
To the continent.
before that, telegraphs.
True.
Yeah.
True, but they didn't go across the.
Yeah, they went under.
I don't think
there was a
so.
telegraph line across the entire Atlantic. Yeah. It didn't last that long, but they have linked.
Would
like,
they have had the insulated in some way?
Well, yeah, with whatever technology they had at the time, but there were telegraph lines
Okay.
linking
I
Europe
didn't
to
know
the
that.
Americas. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, they had to talk somehow, So, anyway, 1909, Einar Dissau of Denmark made first ham broadcast. Sounds delicious. So,
There's ham operators
yeah,
with the mic.
yeah. I wonder though, if Jews or Muslims are allowed to operate ham radios. Well, I mean, ham's not kosher, or the pig is
Stop!
disgusting.
Just stop.
It's a joke.
I got it.
Not as
a
bad
really
as your
bad one.
Yeah. 1911, North Dakota enacted a hail insurance law. Okay, that's
Oh,
pretty cool.
hell no.
Yeah. 1925, Great Tri-State Tornado, a monstrous F5 at over 300 miles per hour. Tornado roared 219 miles across southeast Missouri, southern Illinois, and southwest Indiana, killing 695 people, injuring over 2,000, and destroying 15,000 homes. God's thumb.
How's that possible? 300 miles per hour?
Well, F5s can get to a width of a mile.
yeah, but I don't think they have the velocity of 300
yes.
miles per hour.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. Like imagine a hurricane, okay, and then just smaller
Condense it down.
That's
Yeah,
a tornado.
yeah.
They can get a 300 mile, 500 miles per hour. They get crazy,
I could tell you a tornado joke, but you don't want to hear it on air.
Does it have a twist? Does it suck? Come on.
Yeah, boo.
No,
I'm
no,
just
tell
going to
me.
leave my joke alone.
No. Tell me.
Okay, a tornado comes in. Oh, God, no, I forgot it. I've forgotten the first part of it, so forget it. Just keep moving.
All right. 1931, the first electric shavers went on sale in the U.S. The Schick.
Oh, yeah, Schick. I
Yeah.
don't think they're around today.
I don't think so, but let me look these up to see how these look. Schick. Oh my God!
Look at that.
What is that thing? Where's the is this the shaver part?
That
I guess
looks
that
like the
is.
shaver, yeah.
But what is all this? Is that the
That's
battery?
the motor.
Oh my goodness! That's the motor. Oh, here we go.
There you go. Well,
Let's
then what was
see.
the other part? If that's not the motor.
Well, no, that is the motor. This is the shaving
Okay.
part here.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
that is the motor.
But that other picture just showed it. See, it doesn't show us.
Well, no, it does. But it's a whole stand.
Yeah.
There's a motor down here and a whole cable, and there it is. Wow, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then moving on to 1942, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9102, creating the War Relocation Authority, which was charged with overseeing the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. And that, I cannot argue, was a completely racially motivated thing because, I used to say, blah, 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 like, we don't know who's enemy and who's friend. They took advantage, of our hospitality, and that's how they, scouted out Pearl Harbor and all that stuff. But then people say, okay, that's cool. Why didn't we do it to the Germans too? We should have. If anything, if we're going to do it, we do it to both. But we did it to one and not the other. That's not right. So,
True.
And FDR was, a Democrat. So what do you expect from them? 1952, the first plastic lens for cataract patients was fitted in Philadelphia. plastic lens. Well, I guess they have to be made of plastic. I guess they're silicone these days.
I don't know.
But the thought of putting something in my eye.
I know.
I'd rather no. Like.
Apparently, I need to go see about cataracts.
Yeah. You haven't gone already yet?
No. I already made an appointment.
You got to get on that. 1959, U.S.
Put it on my to-do list.
In 1959, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Hawaii Statehood Bill. Yeah, you were around when there were only 48 states. You remember when Alaska and Hawaii? I don't remember which one was first.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
I think Alaska was first.
It's kind of wild to think you were around when there were only 48 stars.
Oh yeah, 48 states.
Yeah,
that was what it was.
Yeah.
This is 59, so I was already 12, 13 years old.
Yeah. 1965, a truck lost control down Mosick Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, killing the driver. This accident later inspired the 1974 Harry Chapman song 30,000 Pounds of Bananas.
That's sick.
Yeah, like, that's a lot of bananas. Yeah, that's just interesting, Yeah.
Sick. I'm sorry.
1965 as well, Poppin' Fresh Pillsbury Doughboy was introduced. Yeah. 1965, Rolling Stones was fined $5 each for public urination. Why are you peeing in the public? You're the Rolling Stones. Can't you, move on somewhere else? Gather moss? I don't know. Some kind
Here
of joke.
you can get arrested for I forget what it's called, but it's not just urinating.
Indecent
it's like,
exposure.
Yeah, indecent exposure.
Yeah.
And then you're
a sex offender.
Then you're a sex offender for the rest of your life.
Yeah. 1965 as well, Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov left his spacecraft Voskov 2 for 12 minutes and became the first person to conduct a spacewalk. Once again, the Soviets beat us.
Yep.
1966, Scott Paper began selling paper dresses for $1. Paper dress.
Huh.
Paper dress. In 1966.
For $1?
So this wasn't like, during the Great Depression or anything.
$1 for a dress, still cheap. I don't care.
Yeah. Now, this reminds me of John Panette when he was going on about the suit made of Charmin.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Is that Versace? No, it's Charmin. 1968, U.S. Congress repealed requirement for a gold reserve. That is not good.
Nah, we should have stayed on that gold standard.
Yeah.
That's Nixon.
Well, it was FDR who started it, and Nixon, finished it.
Yeah.
1985, Capital Cities Communications Inc. acquired ABC for $3.5 billion with a B dollars. First transfer of ownership of a TV network. Yeah. 1990, first free elections in East Germany. Conservatives beat communists. Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah.
1990 as well, in the largest art heist in U.S. history, 13 works of art worth over $500 million were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Wow. 92, U.S. businesswoman Leona Helmsley was sentenced to 4 years for tax evasion. Quote, "We don't pay taxes, only the little people pay taxes," end quotes.
Wrong.
Yeah, she should see the business end of a guillotine for saying that crap. Only the little people, but up yours. This is why we need to reenact, Occupy Wall Street. They have this mentality, these elitist scumbags. 2007, former England Test cricket batsman, here we go, and Pakistan coach Bob Woolmer was found dead one day after his team's defeat to Ireland puts them out of the World Cup in the West Indies. Cause of death remains suspicious. So even in cricket, there's a whole world of foul
It's killing
play.
me.
Yeah.
Cricket.
Yeah, but somebody died over this, so,
it's killing me.
Wild.
So there you go. Now we're getting 2 for the price of 1.
2018, first fatal accident involving an Uber self-driving car hitting a pedestrian in Tempe, Arizona. And, I think there's, a whole thing about these self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Not only not recognizing black people, but intentionally trying to hit them. Like they're programmed to be racist or something. It's weird. So...
I was just watching an interview last night, and they're coming out with this new hypersonic jet fighter. It's brand new.
Oh, yeah.
Technology is beyond anything they've ever seen. And they're saying, well, why isn't this a pilotless
a drone? Yeah.
Aircraft.
Yeah.
And this retired general goes, good idea, but all you need to do is have that weapon up there, the Chinese or whoever hack into it, and it becomes theirs, and they're attacking you with your own plane.
Yeah, have you ever seen the movie Stealth?
I have not.
Basically, the premise is it's one of these run of the mill sci-fi stories, but the premise itself is pretty interesting. It's about like this it's this team of three. They're in these like super advanced like 7th generation fighters, and they're all stealth, and they go at Mach 70 or something crazy, and then they decided to like put in this super hyper like AI thing in one of these aircraft to be like a wingman, a 4th person of the squadron. And like there's this one scene where it's sitting there, he's like, oh look, it's downloading music from the internet, and the guy's like, oh, what songs? All of them. And it downloaded every song on the internet like that. That's how hyper advanced his AI was and everything. Yeah. But then it got hit by lightning and it went rogue and it starts shooting down everybody else. What do?
Sounds like a good movie.
And it's not like it got hacked. It made its own plan.
Yeah.
That's even more scary.
Yeah. You now rule the world.
Yeah. Moving on up to 2021, U.S. President Joe Biden agreed Russian President Vladimir Putin is a killer. In ABC News interview, Putin responds, "It takes one to know one." A day later, at least they're recognizing each other.
Yeah, but that does not lay the groundwork to create peace between Ukraine and Russia.
Well,
that's the problem.
Biden's an idiot.
Like that. Yeah, but that's the only problem with those kind of statements.
Moving on to March 19th, 1452, Frederick III of Habsburg was crowned Holy Roman Emperor by Pope Nicholas V at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, becoming the last Holy Roman Emperor crowned in Rome. Because then after that, it shifted to Constantinople for Eastern Rome.
Oh, okay.
And then they continued on from there, and then now that is known as Istanbul, Turkey.
Yeah.
Rome became the Ottomans.
Oh, the Ottoman Empire. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
1831, first U.S. bank robbery. The Citibank in New York robbed of $245,000. Which, what would that be today? 1831, 245,000. Let's see here. 1831, $245,000 equivalency. Let's see here. Inflation it would be worth. Calculates. $8,945,907.47 today. That's still pretty big haul right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
1863, Confederate cruiser SS Georgiania destroyed on her maiden voyage with a cargo of munitions and medicines, then valued at over $1 million.
$1 million.
Million? No, it's not. It's not. What the hell are you doing?
I don't know.
What are you drinking? 1 million bottles of beer.
What the hell are you doing?
Excuse me, I didn't spend 4 years in medical instead of to be called Mr. Evil. It's Doctor. 1870.
What the hell are you doing?
The wreck was discovered exactly 102 years later by teenage driver and pioneer underwater archaeologist E. Lee Spence, and we will be talking about that a little bit later. 1911, the first International Women's Day saw over 1 million men and women attend rallies in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. Issues discussed included women's right to vote and to hold public office, the right to work, to vocational training, and an end to discrimination on the job. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
1915, Pluto photographed for the first time, although it was unknown at the time. They didn't know what Pluto. They just thought they saw it. They photographed.
What is this?
Yeah. And now it's a planetoid or whatever the hell.
There's an ongoing dimension. Is it really a planet? Is it big enough?
Well, the thing is that there's objects in the asteroid belt between Earth and Mars
bigger than that?
Bigger than Pluto.
Yeah.
So if we're going to calculate Pluto as a planet, then we don't have 9 planets. We have 47. So, but Pluto will always
have. It's outside the asteroid belt. That's the difference.
Well, it's but it's still I don't know.
Well, that's a big difference.
Yeah. 1918, U.S. adopted Standard Time Act of 1918. I want you to talk about something after I talk about this here. Also known as the Calder Act, a federal law implementing Standard Time and Daylight Saving Time and defining 5 time zones for the United States.
Okay.
So, now we're going to be premiering a new show, one of your own design. What's it called?
I'm okay, you're okay.
And what's our first episode going to be about?
Oh, we don't know. We haven't really.
It's kind of.
We're talking about should we stay on one standard time? And if we do, should it be standard or daylight time?
Yeah.
Permanently. Which one should it be?
And we're probably going to premiere that on Monday. Like,
Okay.
right?
That's the hope.
Yeah. But, you know, but we got to stick to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But stay tuned. So yeah, moving on to 1920, U.S. Senate rejected the Treaty of Versailles for the second time, refusing to ratify the League of Nations Covenant and maintains a policy of isolation. So here we go again. And we spoke earlier in 1927. It was a treaty of something, Versailles, or whatever.
Treaty of Versailles. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what happened before.
Right.
History is weird, at least reporting on it. So. Now, 1928, and you answered my question. Amos and Andy debuted on radio, NBC Blue Network, WMAQ Chicago. Does Loon remember this show?
Amos and Andy. I do not remember the radio show, but they turned it into a TV show. You know, a half-hour sitcom type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the irony is called Amos and Andy, but the real headliner was, I think his name was Kingfish.
Huh.
He was the guy the show was focused on mostly.
All right.
Yeah, I remember the TV show only.
So you're saying that it's scaled more to him?
Yes. Boo.
Thank you.
Right over the head initially.
I'm just fishing.
By the way, if you don't know, and it's irrelevant, but it makes a difference to some people, it was an all-black show.
Oh, okay. 1937, astronomer Fritz Zwicky published his research on stellar explosion, in which he coins the term supernova and hypothesized that they were the origin of cosmic rays. So the origin of the word supernova.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
I love that.
1954, first rocket-driven sled on rails tested in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Later, dudes.
Yeah, I had that image without thinking of the actual show of that.
I posted that in my little Christmas Vacation.
Yeah,
and like
later, dude.
Like he was testing that new
That's what I was thinking of.
That new non-stick spray or
whatever
it
was.
Like
he's got the big name for it.
Yeah, and it just. 1958, Britain's first planetarium opened at Madame Tussauds in London. Yes, the wax place hosted the first planetarium. That's weird. Okay. 1964, Sean Connery's first day of shooting on James Bond film Goldfinger.
Yeah. It wasn't the first. The first was Dr. No.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that was before James Bond even became a thing. Like, he had to force it down throats before it became a thing. Yeah. It almost didn't take off.
Goldfinger was huge.
Yeah.
I don't even remember Dr. No.
Yeah. 1 year later, in 1965, as I mentioned earlier, the wreck of the SS Georgiana, valued at over $50 million, said to have been the most powerful Confederate cruiser discovered by the then teenage driver and pioneer underwater archaeologist E. Lee Spence, exactly 102 years after its destruction. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, right? 1974, Jefferson Starship began their first tour.
Yeah, that was after Jefferson Airplane.
Ah.
That's the airplane broke up, and then the Starship took some of those people, different factions, stuff, and kept the Jefferson part.
Yeah, pretty cool. They went from airplane to Starship.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah. 1991, NFL owners stripped Phoenix of the 1993 Super Bowl game due to Arizona not recognizing federal holiday Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That's not cool.
No, that's not.
It's not cool that they don't recognize it, but it's not cool to prohibit them. Then why even let them play?
Well, here's what the problem is for me. If you do something within the NFL structure that is unacceptable, fine, take it away from them. But this has nothing to do with
politics.
Nothing to do with football. Zip it. Be quiet. You're not political.
They're getting punished for the actions of things that they have no control over.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Only football can you do that. Strip or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Then you won't get any qualms from me.
1994, the largest omelet at 1,383 square feet was made with 160,000 eggs in Yokohama, Japan. Yum.
Yeah. I wonder how many eggs it would take if it was a what's the big bird down there?
Ostrich?
How many ostrich eggs?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's calculations that you can do.
Probably 20 to 1 or something.
I don't know. 2008, GRB 080319b, a cosmic burst that is the farthest object visible to the naked eye, is briefly observed. Woo. Wow, so then something just blew up in space.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. And 2019, a super bloom of poppies in Walker Canyon, Southern California, visible from space after high rainfall. I remember talking about this.
Huh.
A super bloom. You know, let me look this up here really quick. Well, it was poppies.
Poppies, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if there's a picture. Yeah, well, look at.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh man, that's a desktop picture right there. Look at that. Man.
Wow.
Whoa. Look at all the colors, man.
Yeah.
That is awesome. All the purple and orange.
It's kind of showing you when in colors,
Purple and orange.
different species with different colors
Yeah.
dominated different areas.
Yep.
Whichever took hold dominated that area.
Yep. Going to move on up to March 20th, 1345. Conjunction of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, thought by scholars at the University of Paris to be the cause of the plague epidemic, known as the Black Death. The actual cause was bacterium Yersinia pestis, spread by fleas, rats, and other animals. But people were very superstitious, and I think we're going to be talking about it. I'm not sure, but there were a couple articles. I'm not sure if I put them in here, but another, blame for the Black Death was, a lot of people blamed the Jews. They were saying that they poisoned the wells and all that stuff, and they blamed the Black Death on the Jews. There was a bunch of pogroms.
I always thought it was a virus.
It was.
They didn't understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Yeah.
But but yeah, they believe that a conjunction was caused by caused the epidemic as well. So they're always looking for a reason, but they can't wrap their minds around washing their hands. So at the time.
Yeah.
1520, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V ordered all Lutheran books in the Low Countries to be reduced to ash. That's not good. I do not condone burning books at all.
No.
Even if it's a Nazi book, don't burn it. I don't agree with it, but use that as a basis to know what not to do. Because without it, how do you know it exists?
You just can't burn books. That's all there is to it. I don't care what they are.
Yep. 1602, United Dutch East India Company, VOC, granted a monopoly in all Dutch seaborne trade with Asia. And VOC, oh man, dude, there's a video here, Mid-Sea Studios VOC. I'm going to actually post this in the underbar here. But this is a really interesting video. I'd like to show it to you later and such. But let me put this in here. VOC. There we go. So, watch this video, of course, after
How
this
long
video.
is it?
10 minutes. But VOC was the largest company in the history of the earth.
Huh.
They were huge, and
Wow.
they dealt with slavery. They dealt with all the things. They controlled entire things. So it's wild.
That's
Yeah.
hard to comprehend,
Yep.
But for back in the day.
1648, King Charles I of England first tried to escape captivity at Carisbrooke Castle on the Isle of Wight by climbing out a window, but he got stuck. So the King of England, though, the king, first.
That's a coup, is what that is. If you're
No.
jailing the king.
No. He was captured by an enemy army. He was out there fighting with his men, and he got captured. He was trying to escape, an opposing nation's captivity.
I see. I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he wasn't cooed.
Okay.
If he was cooed, just kill him.
True.
1774, the British Parliament passed the first of the Intolerable Acts, a Boston Port Act, which closed Boston Harbor until colonists would pay for damages following the Boston Tea Party. Yeah, good luck with that. Which, kind of, shame on you to the colonists to dress up as natives, so that way if anybody got any flack, it'd be the natives. That's not cool.
No, not at all.
So, but at the same time, if they get caught, they're going to get killed. It's a really tough position. Very easy for us to, in this day and age, to look back and say, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda.
But
put yourself.
my perception is, and easy to say, if you're going to do it, stand up and do it. Don't hide behind something and do it. You're doing it halfway.
Exactly.
But easy to say.
Yeah. 1800, Alessandro Volta reported his discovery of the electric battery in a letter to Joseph Banks, president of the Royal Society of London. All right, electric battery. Pretty cool.
Now Tesla knows who to thank.
Yeah. Well, you can go all the way back to the Egypt, those batteries.
In pots or clay pots or whatever.
Yeah. They believe are batteries because there's residue left over on the inside of something that was conductive or whatever. 1819, London's famous Burlington Arcade opened, the world's first shopping arcade. Shopping arcade? Just shopping? Like,
sad moment.
what do you mean?
Shopping.
Oh, okay. I thought you knew something I didn't. Like,
No.
they mean
No.
they mean in slavery or something. I don't know.
No.
Like,
It's just shopping.
1854, Boston Public Library opened in Boston, of course, Massachusetts, as the first large free municipal library in the U.S.
Hey.
Yeah, not really free though. I think there might have been taxes that paid for that. Like everything costs money.
But it didn't cost anybody, it was free to the public to come in.
Yeah, but it wasn't free to operate. So where'd that money come from?
Obviously from taxes.
Yeah. 1854, Republican Party formally organized in Ripon, Wisconsin. Happy birthday, Republican Party.
Or a very rich donor.
That too. 1883, Jan Montagnier received his first patent, number 274,207, for a shoelacing, I think, machine which mechanized shoe production. So, like
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how we just got new shoes.
Yeah.
Remember how they were all bundled up and put in? That's a
yeah.
machine does that.
Yeah.
So, 1886, the first AC alternating current power plant in the U.S. began commercial operation in Massachusetts. All right.
You know what the big advantages between AC and DC?
Well, I know there's AC/DC, the band.
No, AC travels.
Yes.
DC does.
Well, no, like DC.
Very far.
DC is direct. You have to
Direct
be.
current.
Yeah. AC doesn't really travel, but they have things that they bounce off of each other, so that way
It'll continue
the
to
current,
this alternating,
this
so
current,
it'll continue
it
to
transfers. Like imagine a bucket brigade. You hand this bucket to this guy, he hands it down the line. That's AC.
Yeah.
That's alternating current. It alternates from this and it goes
And
all the way
because
down.
it alternates, it'll travel. That's
Yeah.
the point.
1917, after the sinking of 3 more U.S. merchant ships, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, boo, met with his cabinet who agreed that war is inevitable. No, you want war. We declared neutrality, but then we aided one side. That's not neutral.
True.
And then we got all pissed off that the enemy was sinking our ships, that we were supplying them. Well, of course they're sinking our ships.
And the huge explosions from hitting them, obviously they were fully loaded with armament,
Yeah.
weapons and
Munitions,
munitions,
explosives,
all of that.
stuff like
But
that.
anyways,
Yeah. The Lusitania was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then there's this whole Mandela effect behind the bombing of that harbor in New York City that damaged the Statue of Liberty.
I'm
People
not
are
aware of
saying
that.
that. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a whole Mandela effect. That there's this they blew up some harbor or something in New York, and the explosion was so big it damaged the Statue of Liberty, and that's why we got into World War I. No, it was Lusitania,
yeah.
or what was it? What dimension are we in anymore? So, moving on up to 1920, the first flight from London to South Africa landed. Took 1.5 months.
Oh,
Oh, you really wanted to go there?
wasn't a direct flight, that's for sure.
No. 1922, USS Langley was commissioned, the U.S. Navy's first aircraft carrier. The Langley in 1922.
I think we've seen pictures of that before.
Yeah, I'm not like it's saying it's the U.S.'s first, but was it a purpose built or was it just no?
Yeah.
No,
They
it wasn't
put it
a
on
purpose
top-
built.
yeah.
They just slabbed a flight deck on top
Yeah.
of a pre-existing ship.
Yeah. But the concept is the first, so
yeah.
there you go.
But it's not the first purpose built aircraft carrier.
Well, it was purposely built.
Well,
they took
not
a
from the
ship and-
ground up.
Well,
They took a pre-existing ship and slapped a thing on it.
Yeah.
Later on, they started building ships specifically to be an aircraft carrier with the conning tower on the
they
side.
probably had to do a lot more to that just for reinforcement, to make it float, to make it strong enough to have a deck with planes on top of it. So
Yeah.
it had to come from the first, from the bottom up. But I mean, it's the first one.
Well, I mean, this is not the bottom up. They literally took like an oil tanker and then put a flight deck on it.
Yeah.
That ship, the Langley, before the flight deck, that ship had been around for a while already. They just slapped
Maybe.
it.
You don't know.
No, I
Could've
do
been
know.
built-
No, I
Huh?
do know for a
Oh.
fact. And I'm telling you, that's
That's
how.
what it looks like for sure.
No, that's how they did it. They
Okay.
literally slapped a deck on pre-existing boats. Later on, they started building them purpose-built.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I'm telling you that as a fact.
But they probably had to strengthen it, make sure it would float with extra weight on it and everything else.
Well, it's a tanker. They just don't have the oil in it, and it can still float. And the extra pocket of more buoyancy.
Okay, yeah,
So,
okay.
1930, American fast food restaurant chain Kentucky Fried Chicken, better known as KFC, was founded as Sanders Court and Cafe by Colonel Harlan Sanders in North Corbin, Kentucky.
And was he really a colonel?
I don't think he was.
No.
1931, Bishop Schreiber warned against National Socialism in Berlin. Ooh.
Well, he was right.
Yeah. Talk about, foreshadowing right there.
Yeah.
Oh, and pretty interesting. 2 years later, exactly on the same day, 1933, Dachau, the first Nazi concentration camp, was completed.
Jeez.
Talk about, one after another.
Yeah.
Yikes. 1934, Rudolf Colonel demonstrated radar in Kiel, Germany. Man, if they had gotten more about radar.
Whoa.
Oh, man. 1941, exhibition planning and construction in the East opened in Berlin to showcase General Plan Ost, or Plan for the East, German rural settlements after planned deportations of millions of Slavs. See, that's the thing. When it comes to the Holocaust, everybody only focuses on the Jews. They don't look at the Slavs. They don't look at the Gypsies. They don't look at the mentally handicapped and the challenged. Like everybody was under attack.
Well,
hence
the pure
the Aryan mentality.
race.
Despite Hitler not being Aryan himself, being black hair and brown eyed, and half Jewish.
I don't think he was half Jewish.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, but his mother's side, I think, was a Jew.
Wow.
Yeah, he was half Jewish, or a quarter Jew. He was part Jewish.
Okay.
1944, 2,500 women trampled guards and floor workers to purchase 1,500 alarm clocks announced for sale at a Chicago, Illinois department store.
Alarm clocks?
Yeah, they want to spend money.
They wanted the deal.
They want to spend money. So, 1948, first live televised symphony performances. Eugene Ormandy led Philadelphia Orchestra on CBS, followed 90 minutes later by Arturo Toscanini leading the NBC Orchestra on NBC.
Huh.
Okay, first live televised symphony. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
And then 1952, final ratification of peace treaty restoring sovereignty to Japan by U.S. Senate. All right, so that actually didn't take that long.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah, no. And we didn't have a TV for another 8-9 years.
Oh yeah,
After 1948.
48, yeah.
50 somewhere.
Yeah. 1954, first newspaper vending machine used, Columbia, Pennsylvania. Huh. Yep. 1968, Lyndon B. Johnson signed a bill removing gold backing from U.S. paper money. Talking about this again. So FDR started it.
Yeah.
Nixon, really put the final, nail. Now Nixon was before LBJ, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then LBJ just beating a dead horse.
LBJ, Kennedy, and then of course he took over after Kennedy, the assassination.
So Nixon, Kennedy, and then
LBJ.
Yeah. 1991, Supreme Court ruled unanimously employers can't exclude women from jobs where exposure to toxic chemicals could potentially damage the fetus. Now, all these feminists, are coming out, oh, well, they didn't warn us about, they can damage it. You see, this is what, it drives me insane. They weren't allowing women into certain, industries because they were concerned about their physical well-being. Well, they wanted it in there anyway. Okay, fine, we let them in, and then they start complaining about getting sick. We told you! You wanted it anyway after we told you, and then you're going to make up your freaking mind!
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, I got to go back. I have it all wrong. It was Kennedy, LBJ, and then Nixon came later.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know the exact thing. So, 1992, Manuel Noriega's wife, Felicidad, was arrested for stealing buttons from dresses. What a weird thing to steal.
Wow.
What, is she walking around with a knife or something? To steal this button, to steal... Who steals buttons?
Probably started the War of the Buttons.
It's kind of, the pot calling the kettle black. I'm like, who steals buttons? Meanwhile, I've stolen a parking brick and a shopping cart. 2003, a U.S.-led coalition launched a ground invasion of Iraq after an ultimatum for Saddam Hussein and his sons to leave Iraq expired. So Operation Enduring Freedom.
Yeah.
All that stuff. 2012, Disney movie John Carter recorded one of the largest losses in cinema history with a $200 million write-down. Wow, remember when that was a big deal? Nowadays they're dropping 200 million like candy. Like,
I don't even remember the movie John Carter.
John Carter, it was I think he was like a Union soldier fighting for the Civil
Never
War.
heard of it.
Yeah, it's really dumb. Basically, like I think he was some soldier. I don't remember which side he was fighting on, but during the American Civil War.
Oh, okay.
And then something weird happened, and he got teleported to Mars, where there's a whole civilization there, and he fought with them in one of their own wars. There, it's weird. It's very
Sounds
weird.
very weird.
Yeah, it's very.
Anyways, they lost too weird. They lost a lot of money.
Well, like because it's Mars, it had lower gravity. You know, and, like he could jump far, so he had these physical abilities that the natives couldn't have. So he was like this super weapon for them in some Mars war. It was. I've seen it once. I was stoned when I was watching it. I don't remember much, but that's pretty much the premise. It's weird. 2016, Barack Hussein Obama became the first U.S. president to visit Cuba since 1928, arriving for a 3-day tour with First Lady Michelle. Yeah, of course he would, that communist, you know.
What do you do there for 3 days for crying out loud?
Probably trying to figure out, you know, how the communists are still around and how to implement their belief in it. I don't know. The whole Democrats, they're all communists. 2019, a woman who can smell Parkinson's disease has helped researchers identify molecules on the skin of people with the disease in Manchester, England. Now, that's a very interesting story. She can literally smell Parkinson's somehow. Now, the story goes that, you know, like they put her in front of like some people with Parkinson's and some people with not, and she only had one error. And she smelled somebody who didn't have Parkinson's and said, "Oh, he has Parkinson's." 2 weeks later, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Wow. Wow.
So the error was negated.
100%, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And in 2019, the Walt Disney Company acquired Rupert Murdoch's 21st Century Fox entertainment business for $71 million. You know, and now the Alien, Avatar, and Predator intellectual properties are owned by Disney.
Yeah.
So technically, the Alien Queen is a Disney princess now. So, moving on to March 21st, 630, Byzantine Emperor Heraclius restored the true cross of Jerusalem. Is it really the true cross? You know, that's... So, 1349, as I mentioned earlier here, we have the Black Death Massacre. Between 100 and 3,000 Jews are killed in Black Death riots in Erfurt, Germany, part of a wave of pogroms across Western Europe. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of blame was put on the Jews about the Black Death. You know, everybody, but it's not like it's not like time started and everybody hated the Jews. What happened to make people hate the Jews throughout all of this time? Not every ass kicking falls out of the sky.
True.
You know, so what started this thing? You know, like it takes two to tango.
It's a great question.
And as soon as you start trying to figure that out, you're labeled an anti-Semite. You can't figure it out. What did they do to get this much hate? You know?
Are you sure they did anything? I mean, it could be just...
Nobody's innocent.
Yeah,
Not every ass-kicking drops out of the sky.
Right.
You know? So, in 1788, a fire destroyed 856 buildings in New Orleans, Louisiana. Look into, you know, great fires, look into the whole mud flood theory and all that stuff. You know, that's a whole avenue of you know, rabbit hole right there. 1791, Captain Hopley Yeaton became the first commissioned officer in the Revenue Marine, later the Revenue Cutter Service, the forerunner of the modern U.S. Coast Guard.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I was wondering where all those names were coming from.
Yep. 1844, the original date predicted by William Miller in Massachusetts for the return of Christ and the end of the world. Well, that didn't happen.
No.
So, 1859, Zoological Society of Philadelphia, the first in the U.S., was incorporated. That's pretty cool. 1868, the first U.S. professional women's club, Cirrhosis, that's an awful name.
Yeah, no kidding.
Cirrhosis, formed in New York City. Isn't that a disease of the liver?
Yeah,
you know?
Apparently they did a lot of drinking in that.
Yikes. 1890, Austrian Jewish communities are defined by law. You know, there are so many laws just for Jews. You know, it's weird. Like throughout, you know, researching, writing, you know, for this whole thing, like the Jews get this special law, the Jews get this special law, this and that. You know, it's just, well, then you're like, why do they always get so many special things? Like, you
or
know,
I can ask the question, why are they attacked so often? It's all interpretation.
but look at it from both sides. Why
I
are they
understand that.
Why are they
I'm
attacked so
putting
often?
two sides into it.
Like why are they attacked so often, or why are they attacked so often? Like from both sides of looking at it, why are they attacked so often?
That's what we just asked a minute ago, and
yeah. Now, 1924, the first foreign language course broadcast on U.S. radio, WJZ in New York City, so that's pretty cool.
yeah.
So, 1924 as well, Mass Investors Trust, I guess Massachusetts
Investors
becomes the
Trust.
first mutual fund set up in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
25, Tennessee Governor Austin Peay passed the Butler Act, making Tennessee the first state to outlaw teaching the theory of evolution, repealed in 1967. All right.
That's a good repeal.
Yeah. 1935, Persia was officially renamed Iran.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that Iran was Persia.
Yeah.
And like we all know about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, about the biblical city of Babylon. It still exists today. It's known as Baghdad, Iraq.
Oh.
It's literally on the same land.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
if you dig underneath Baghdad, you'll find
Remnants of Persia.
Yeah. So, in 1943, assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler failed. How unfortunate.
Yeah.
45.
Briefcases saved him or something.
No. That incident.
Big desk.
There was a table. Like there was a briefcase bomb, and then somebody moved it to the other side or whatever, and it blew up, and the table absorbed the explosion because it was between him and the bomb.
Yeah.
But had it been left where it originally was, it would have taken him out.
Gotcha.
And I think Erwin Rommel was part of that conspiracy, and he took his own life to prevent him from getting killed.
Oh.
Reparations or not reparations, reprisal.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea. I can't imagine it being Rommel. But.
Rommel was involved in some attempt. I know that for a fact. 1945, first Japanese kamikaze flying bombs attack on Okinawa.
Yeah.
The MXY-7 Oka. 1947, Pope Pius XII published encyclical Flugens Radiatur. And I'd like to look that up, but we're already at an hour and a half, so we got to keep going.
Yeah.
1947, U.S. President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9835, requiring all federal employees to have, quote, complete and unswerving loyalty to the United States, end quote. Yes, and a lot of, 99.9% of everybody who works for the U.S. government right now does not fit in that criteria and needs to go. So, Afuela! Where's my chainsaw? Afuela! 1951, 2,900,000 U.S. soldiers in Korea, for the Korean War.
Yeah, of course.
1952, 20,000 people attempted to attend the first rock and roll concert ever when Alan Freed presented the Moondog Coronation Ball at the old 12,000 seat Cleveland Arena. Performers included Paul Williams and the Hucklebuckers. That sounds like a racial slur right there. You Hucklebucker! What the hell's a Hucklebucker? Tiny Grimes and the Rocking Highlanders, the Dominoes, and Beretta Dillard.
Dominoes,
Yeah. So 20,000 attempted to get into a 12,000 seat stage. So 8,000, too bad.
Yeah.
So
now very unhappy.
This one raised my eyebrow. 1962, Yogi the Bear became the first creature to be ejected at supersonic speeds by the U.S. military testing ejection seats. Should not go after the picnic basket.
Don't forget the picnic basket.
It was like, hey, you better not do that, Yogi. The Ranger Smith will get awfully sore and send you out of the jet. 1963, Alcatraz prison in San Francisco Bay closed, as a prison.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
1966, U.S. Supreme Court reversed a Massachusetts ruling that Fanny Hill is obscene. Fanny Hill. Well, I mean, if you go by U.S. slang, Fanny means butt, so it's Butt Hill. If you go by British slang, Fanny means a woman's private parts, and that's even more risque. So that's why they always laugh when you talk about a fanny pack.
Oh.
That's...
Okay,
it's their front butt. So, 1972, U.S. Supreme Court ruled states can't require a one-year residency to vote. I do not agree with that. You don't. U.S. states cannot require 1-year residency to vote. No, you do need residency to do anything. You need to be part of the thing that you're voting for. Because if you're not there for a year, you can just come in, vote, and then leave, and then send that area into chaos.
Of course, I've always believed in being a U.S. citizen, but that's only a lot of cities, and I don't know about states, but a lot of cities do not require you to be a citizen, just a resident.
But see, if that's the case,
which shocked me.
If that's the case, and then if I want to go to an out-of-state school, I should not have to pay a premium for not being a resident. By that mentality.
No, because you're coming from out of state and using their facilities.
So if I'm coming out of state,
paid any state taxes.
So if I'm coming out of state and voting for who runs that shit, I don't need to be a resident.
You need to be a resident.
No, this is saying
you don't need to be a citizen.
Oh well, no. This is saying the Supreme Court rules states cannot require 1-year residency to vote. So they're saying that you don't have to. I
don't
disagree
have to
with
be
that.
a 1-year resident.
But you should have to be a resident.
If you move in there and you have to be a resident, but you don't have to be a resident for 1 year.
Where's your list of I'm okay, you're okay? This would be a great topic.
Yeah.
So.
I don't have it with me.
Oh well. 1975, Ethiopia abolished its monarchy after 3,000 years. That's a while.
It's been around.
Yeah.
Almost as long as me.
Yeah, almost. 1978, San Francisco passed the most comprehensive homosexual rights bill in U.S. history. Doesn't that validate the false belief that they are different when they have to have their own special little bill?
Well, that's the point. Why do you need a bill? Shouldn't all people be have the same rights?
I mean, isn't it on the Declaration of Independence, or the Constitution that all men are equal, under God? So then why do we have this for women, this for men, this for gays, this for Jews? You're just validating that they're different. They're not.
I think as far as this marriage has to be between a man and a woman and all that. So they had to do something to negate that.
Yeah. Well, if somebody wants to get married, let them. If somebody wants to be miserable for the rest of their lives, let them. Screw it.
Why do you say they're going to be miserable?
Well, because I mean, you're either married or divorced. With the whole divorce rate and everything going on.
Or never do both.
Yeah.
Plenty have done that.
Or you just skip the whole thing and don't go through the trouble. 1982, Jerry Payton celebrates golf win by jumping into the water hazard.
Oh, Gary Payton, yeah.
Yeah. 1983, the only known typo on Time magazine cover, Control the Control, all magazines were recalled. So instead of the R, so control, they meant to say control, but they put in control.
Okay.
There's a typo.
Yeah, so they recalled.
Yeah. The only known typo on Time magazine.
Okay.
1984, NFL owners passed the infamous anti-celebrating rule. All right.
I don't know. Oh, in other words, you can't celebrate in the end zone when you make a touchdown or something.
1985, Canadian Rick Hansen set off on his Man in Motion World Tour in his wheelchair, raising money for spinal research from Oak Ridge Mall, Vancouver, successfully completed in May of 1987. All right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He said, "Let's roll," and he did.
Literally.
Yeah. 1999, Swiss aviator Bertrand Piccard and British aviator Brian Jones became the first to circumnavigate the Earth in a hot air balloon.
Ah.
Yeah.
I remember something about that.
It was on the radio actually the other day. They were talking about that. She was talking about, how much room is there in a basket? Can you sleep? What about the toilet situation?
Yeah.
How much,
Dump it overboard.
Yeah.
Look out below.
2006, first ever tweet sent out by Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, just setting up my Twitter, which is now known as Twixter. I call it Twixter, So instead of, I refuse to call it X.
Okay.
So, 2012, 5 former Guatemalan paramilitaries are sentenced to 7,710 years in jail for their role in the Pan de Sanchez massacre of 1982. So that took 30 years, but eventually justice came by. 7,710 years. Is that individually or total? That's still a lot of time. 2013, a barter dispute went out of control and resulted in 10 people being killed, 20 injured, and 4 mosques burnt to the ground in Myanmar. A barter dispute. So
to me, barter is trade.
Yeah, They're trying to trade, but somebody didn't agree.
Yeah.
So it got out of hand and resulted in 10 people dying, 20 injured, and 4 places of worship getting burnt to the ground. That got a little out of hand.
Yeah.
So.
Or is that a misprint for border?
Border? Where?
Border dispute instead of a barter dispute.
I don't know. Maybe. 2018, China announced greater controls over the media, including merging state-run radio and television broadcasters into a single conglomerate called Voice of China. Yeah, no, Voice of Yourself.
Yeah.
Freaking terrorists. 2018, Palestinian teenager Ahid Tamimi accepted a plea deal for 8 months in prison after slapping an Israeli officer. So, they can missile them, but they can't slap them. Okay. Yeah, because that makes sense. As in, Israel can missile Palestinians, but Palestinians can't do anything. So.
Who gets missiled all the time? Palestinians have sent hundreds of rockets into Israel.
Yeah, and they all get blown up by that Iron Curtain that we fund.
They were doing it before the technology of the Iron
Well,
Curtain.
Palestine was there first. So, 2019, a huge blast from a chemical factory in Shenzhen Chemical Industry Park in eastern China is so big it registers as an earthquake, killing 70 people and injuring an additional 617 others. Yikes. The explosion's so big it registered as an earthquake.
Wow.
I mean, we kind of felt something like that when that plane crashed a couple years ago on Super Bowl.
Yeah.
2019, Bangladeshi woman with a Bangladeshi woman with 2 uteruses safely gave birth to twins 26 days after giving birth to another child.
Whoa.
Wow. I want to have another one right now. Like,
wow, that's weird.
See, here's the thing, and I'm saying this half jokingly, half seriously. It is said that giving birth is the most painful experience any human can ever have. But I disagree. I say getting kicked in the balls is even... Well, because men don't say kick me again, but women say let's have another child. So what's really more painful?
Kick me again.
Am I wrong?
Move on, please.
2021, 45 people were crushed to death in a crowd paying respects to the late President John Magufuli at a stadium in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Now, there's been a recent incident where, like, they're having a sigil. Like, it wasn't a riot, it wasn't a protest. They're all, like, in the streets. I don't know where it was. There's, like, thousands of people in the streets, and they all had, like, candles. They were paying respects. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like, just... a whole swath of them they just dispersed. And there's a whole theory that they got hit by a sonic weapon, like anti-riot technology and everything. They're not rioting, they're paying respects. Yeah. So what, we're not even allowed to pay respects anymore? Without getting attacked by the military-industrial complex? Just like China, as soon as you get more than 2 people connected, the military comes in and puts a gun to your head. 2024, Elon Musk's Neuralink company posts a video of a patient playing chess online through their brain implant. And, it scares the hell out of me because, somebody gets Neuralink. Well, what if they believe in something that Elon Musk doesn't? Well, then he just flips a switch and your Neuralink doesn't work anymore. And then now they control you.
This is to help the crippled. It's
for now.
Okay,
for now.
I guess there's always a danger being stepped.
And then later on, so you have a Neuralink to be able to move your arm. Well, then, then somebody hacks it, or the system disables it because you voted the wrong way. Now you can't use your arm. 2024, social media company Reddit made its debut on the New York Stock Exchange, its shares rising 48%. Reddit is a publicly traded company. I had no idea.
Why does that surprise you?
Well, because it's some stupid online site full of incels. So, moving on up to this date, March 22nd, home stretch, last several articles.
This has been a marathon.
But it's been a great one,
It's been really good.
Like, you haven't been getting up, you haven't been anxious, you've been enjoying it, right?
Oh, I've been enjoying it a great deal. But the legs are telling me it's enough.
Yeah. 1621, Dutch jurist Hugo Grotius escaped in a book chest from Livingston Castle in the Netherlands.
Book chest?
Yeah, escaping prison or whatever.
Okay,
1622, first Native American Powhatan massacre of Europeans around Jamestown, Virginia, 347 killed. So the natives killed us, killed the whites,
Yeah.
the colonizers.
Yeah.
So, but see, and this is another thing, like the whole Indian thing, the whole people believe
Native
that.
American, yeah.
Well, people believe that that the vernacular to call Native Americans Indians came because of Christopher Columbus trying to find India. No, India wasn't named India back then.
Yes,
if anything, it was named the Raj. And then as you've educated me on, Indians came from the Indio tribe, and then not just Indians.
Yeah.
So, calling Native Americans Indians is not racist to any degree because it had nothing to do with India.
Yeah.
Everything we thought about that involving Christopher, completely fictional.
Yeah.
So, 1630, the first colonial legislation prohibiting gambling was enacted in Boston. All right. 1764, Dutch Expeditionary Corps launched an attack on slave armies and settlements during Bernice Rebellion, modern Guyana, first major slave rebellion in South America. Okay. 1765, the Stamp Act was passed, the first direct British tax on American colonists, organized by Prime Minister George Grenville. Well, we spoke earlier about when it was repealed.
Yeah.
This is when it was enacted. Stupid move on the Brits. So, 1775, British MP Edmund Burke made a speech to the English Parliament advocating for peace with the American colonies. Yeah, about time. Too little, too late, though. But about time they got their head on right. How many times did we, try to peacefully become independent? How many times, when you're fighting an enemy that just refuses to see your side, then violence is the answer because that's what they want.
It's not seeing your side; they refuse to let you go.
Exactly. Well, it's not just
Either
that.
they're too valuable or whatever.
Well, I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the current political climate. The whole right versus left.
Yeah.
The conservatives for the most part. Now I'm not playing favorites. I'm just saying facts. Conservatives for the most part are open to the idea of other viewpoints, not necessarily agreeing with them, but hearing them out. With the lefts, no, my way or the highway.
Well, again, you're injecting your I don't know about facts. You're injecting
that's literally how it
interpretation.
is. But I mean, you can't play with these people. They will not work with you. So at the end of the day, it's their way or the highway. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to make it the highway then, and you ain't going to be traveling with me, if you catch my drift. Moving on up to 1790, Thomas Jefferson became the first U.S. Secretary of State under President Washington. All right.
What date again?
1790.
Okay.
Yeah, of the U.S. Because it wasn't until 1780 or so before the U.S. became a thing. There was about 10 years, of figuring out what we're going to do.
What we're going to do,
Yeah.
Parliament and everything else wasn't set up. It took a while to get there.
Well, no, we don't even have Parliament. That's British.
Not Parliament, but Congress.
Yeah. 1794, Congress, speaking of Congress, banned U.S. vessels from supplying slaves to other countries. Okay, well, I guess that's a step forward, kind of, or I guess the side.
Well, I think that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, but now we're focusing on only, providing slaves to us. So.
Well, no. They could be. I interpret that as being, you can't.
You can't supply slaves to other countries, but you can still supply slaves to us.
By 1790, were we still slavery was still around?
Yes.
As far as
slavery was abolished in 1865.
Yeah, I know, but okay, I guess so. We were still supplying slaves from other countries in 1790. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, I mean,
did they inhibit that?
Well, no,
not only other countries.
This is not government. This is U.S. vessels. So if back in those times,
well, we only had jurisdiction over U.S. vessels. My question is, were they in 1790 still allowed to bring slave ships here?
Okay, Congress banned U.S. vessels, so private
US
citizens' vessels from supplying slaves to other countries, which means you cannot supply slaves to any other country but the U.S. So, if you have your own slave company, then you can only supply the U.S. You cannot go and be your own.
I guess
person
my
and
question
supply.
is, when did we ban ships supplying slavery to the U.S.? When did we ban that?
1865.
we banned slavery, but is that the same date as being
Well,
allowed to bring slaves here?
But if
Two
we
different things.
ban the transport of slaves, how can we have slaves to ban slavery later on to begin with?
Well, we already had slaves here. We could stop bringing more slaves.
Yeah. I think we're confusing each other.
I think we maybe are.
Anyway, moving on up to 1829, the three protecting powers, Britain, France, and Russia, established the borders of Greece. All right. 1841, a method for alkali starch extraction was patented in the U.S. by Orlando Jones, which is later applied to corn, known today as cornstarch.
Okay.
Yeah. 1872, Illinois became the first state to require sexual equality in employment. You know, see, once again, as soon as you start having laws are just society outsourcing what is acceptable or unacceptable and putting it in the hand of authority. So instead of the citizens holding themselves accountable, they're putting their accountability in the hands of authorities. So as soon as we have a law for something, we're raising our hands up and saying, oh, we can't be held accountable. The accountability is outsourced to this now. You know, like I'm all for less government, less this, less that. Well, because, you know, right here, to require sexual equality in employment. Well, there should be sexual equality just as a standard, but as soon as
there wasn't.
Yes, there wasn't. But then you make a law. The law, you know, doesn't necessarily be followed. It's not a question of should there or should there not be a law. It's a question of societal normalities. Laws should not dictate societal normalities. Societal normalities should dictate laws.
Nice in theory, but it doesn't work. Just like Kennedy, equal pay for equal work. He established that. Why? Because women were getting paid less doing the same job.
Yeah.
That's not right.
It's not right.
So they made a law to make it right.
But that doesn't mean people don't obey the law all the time.
Well,
So at the end of the day, it's down to the individual people to be good people. You know, they don't. You know, laws aren't some magic force that, you know, makes people do what they don't want to do if they have ill intent. You know. 1872, got that one. 1873, slavery is abolished in Puerto Rico, celebrated as Emancipation Day. All right, good.
Yeah, absolutely.
1896, Charlios Valaskilos of Greece won the first modern marathon in 3 hours and 18 minutes at the Panhellenic Games.
Okay.
Cool. 1917, the U.S. is the first nation to recognize the new government of Russia. Not good. 1917, that's during the Soviets.
Well, this is after World War II.
No. Vladimir Lenin rose to power and had the Soviet Revolution while Russia was actively in World War I against Germany, and one of his main things, if not the biggest thing, was his promise to get Russia out of the war.
Okay, so World War I ended when?
1918.
So just after this, the year after
Yeah,
this.
so the Soviet Union formed during World War I, and then they got themselves out of the war. World War I kept going, but the Soviet Union got out of it and kept going. And the USA was the first nation to recognize these commies.
Well,
So-
I think we wanted to recognize them to unite against Germany.
They weren't against Germany anymore.
What do you mean?
They rose up and overthrew their own government, the Russians, to get them out of the war. The U.S. had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
1933, FDR signed the Colin-Harrison Act, legalizing the sale of beer and wine with up to 3.2% alcohol. That's the end of Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Prohibition was during the Roaring 20s.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
After the Roaring 20s.
No. Wait. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Hold on a second.
Yeah, no, after the Roaring 20s were going on, and then
When
the
was-
Prohibition hit. We can't have this. Everybody's drunk. Blah blah blah.
Prohibition began in 1920.
Yeah.
So, the Roaring 20s were in the 20s. Prohibition started in the 1920.
So it was
This is-
afterwards.
This is after
after the
repealing.
abolishment.
Yeah, after the abolishment, or somewhere around.
So
the
when was it
abolishment.
abolished?
When was Prohibition abolished? December 5th, 1933. So it's coming up.
So how did they have the Roaring 20s during Prohibition? I guess that's because it was all underground and quiet. I
Yeah,
guess.
speakeasies and all that
Yeah.
jazz.
Yeah. Okay.
So, 1935, blood test authorizes evidence in court cases in New York. Okay. 1945, Arab League formed with the adoption of a charter in Cairo, Egypt.
United Arab League.
Yep. Well, no, you're thinking of the United Arab Emirates. The UAE. The Arab League is something else.
I think it was called the United Arab League, I thought.
No. Well,
okay. Well, maybe
you're right. I don't know. Now we have two in 1957, and this kind of is wild. I'm all shook up. Single released by Elvis Presley.
Elvis the Pelvis.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Now here's an interesting. On that same day, same year, an earthquake shook San Francisco. Okay, so
did one cause the other?
Yeah. Or like, did he release it after? That's a really weird coincidence.
Of which neither has anything to do with either one.
Yeah, but I'm all shook up.
Yeah, and then there's earthquake.
Yeah. 1963, the Beatles released their first album, Please Please Me. Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like a proposition for prostitution. Please please me. 1968, Lyndon Johnson ordered off San Francisco cable car for eating an ice cream cone. So so she was ordered to get off of the.
She's eating an ice cream cone.
Yeah, apparently not allowed food.
Apparently not.
Yeah, I don't know who Lyndon Johnson was, but 1972, in Eisenstadt versus Baird, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled unmarried people have the same right to contraception as married people. Okay, I just found that weird.
I don't even know what that means.
Contraception, birth control.
I know. I understand that.
But before that, then it was illegal.
Married people couldn't?
Well, no. Unmarried people have the same right to contraception as married. So married people had the right. But if you're unmarried, you're not allowed.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah. 1972 as well, U.S. Congress approved the Equal Rights Amendment. It's still not ratified. Still not ratified.
Wow.
Okay. 1984, teachers at the McMeriton Preschool in Manhattan Beach, California, were charged with satanic ritual abuse of the children in the school. The charges were later dropped as completely unfounded. I don't know.
I remember that whole
thing. They might need to reopen the case with how everything is these days.
Well, I remember that. Big stink.
Yeah. 1989, U.S. Supreme Court upheld one person, one vote rule of New York City Board of Estimates. Yeah.
I don't even know what that's about.
Well, you're one person, you get one vote.
Yeah.
What
else can it be?
New York City Board of Estimate, whatever that is. Apparently, people were voting twice. I don't know. Like, in any aspect, if you're voting in anywhere, one vote, one person. That's it.
Yeah.
1991, U.S. high school teacher Pamela Smart was found guilty in New Hampshire for manipulating her student lover to kill her husband. Yikes. 2018, Never Straight Answers rover Spirit got caught in a sand trap on Mars and ceased communications with Earth. Yep. Which reminds me, Curiosity killed the cat. Let's see if the image comes up that I want to find. No. Well, it used to be that Curiosity rover kills a cat. Here it is. I love this meme here. You know the whole term Curiosity kills a cat?
Yeah, of course.
Well, that rover is named Curiosity.
Ah, okay.
And it's lasering a cat. It's Curiosity killing the cat.
Gotcha.
Ha 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 ha. Anyway, 2018, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch between Hawaii and California has 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic and increasing rapidly according to new research.
Yeah. I saw a deal on that today.
Yeah, well, take this with a grain of salt with all the woke crap going on. It exists, but is it really this much? It is bad, but is it really as bad as they're saying it is? It's still bad. It's still bad, but is it being used and inflated to push an agenda? That's the question. 2018, U.S. President Donald Trump imposed $60 billion worth of tariffs on Chinese imports. Good.
And that's the one thing that Biden left in place.
Yeah. Well, no, he also left the Space Force.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was introduced by him, but I don't think that was done by executive order, was it?
Well, Biden essentially, the microsecond that Biden took power, he threw everything Trump did out the window except for the Space Force, and apparently this too.
Yeah. No, these he left in place.
Well, that's a little weird. 2019 quote-unquote mind-blowing discovery announced a 518 million year old fossil site is near Danshu River, Hubei province, China, with thousands of unknown fossils well preserved. You can take that with a grain of salt. It's China.
Yeah.
It could all be BS. 2021, Evanston, Illinois voted to become the first U.S. city to pay reparations to black residents for past discriminations and effects of slavery, giving $400,000 to each household. No. Didn't we already pay that in blood with all the white people who died to end slavery?
I'm just totally against it too.
Like, slavery was bad. It sucked. Okay. But how many white people died for that?
Yeah, to get rid of slavery.
To get rid of
their
it.
reparations?
Yeah, where's their reparations?
Oh, let's move on. I just don't even like that.
2021, sanctions imposed on Chinese officials over rights abuses against Uyghurs in China by EU, UK, US, and Canada.
Yeah.
And the Uyghurs, Muslims and all that stuff, they have rights.
Yeah, well, no, they don't in China.
Well, they're supposed to. 2022, microplastics found in human blood for first time through new research conducted at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam and the Netherlands. Great!
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier. We were going to talk about plastics later.
Yeah, well, microplastics in blood, that's scary.
Yeah.
Now we have microplastics that can pass the brain-blood barrier. It's in your brain. Now you have plastics in your brain, and that inhibits synapses.
And the only way it's getting there is by digesting food.
Well, it's not just that, but it's all the crap that our food is put into. You buy a pack of hot dogs, get a bottle of water, that deteriorates. Now it's in your water. It's not just all the garbage patch and stuff in the ocean. It's just all the packaging. I mean, if the left really were anti-plastic, why would they put paper straws in plastic containers? They wanted to get rid of plastic straws that were in paper wrapping. Then they put paper straws in plastic wrapping. Well, then it's not about the plastic now, is it? The 2023 U.S. Library Association said 2022 had highest number of calls to censor library books in the U.S. in over 20 years, with 2,571 titles affected, up to 38%, with Alphabet Mafia books most requested. So, just more censorship and all that crap. And last but not least, 2023, new DNA analysis of composer Ludwig van Beethoven's hair revealed he probably died of cirrhosis of the liver and hepatitis B, but does not explain his deafness. Well, he was deaf. Okay. All right, so we discovered how he died through his hair. DNA, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And now I'll conclude the show. Please check the owner bar in the description below for any links that you may be interested in, including but not limited to all things Omni Coalition. For your dose of everything, history and all that stuff. We started this show, this week in history.
Yeah.
Going to try to get back into doing this date in history, and we will have a news show here in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Which you're not going to be. You're going to a party.
No, I will be here. Party's been canceled.
Okay, well, all right. Well, until you catch us next time, don't forget to look right and left at every intersection, rate 5 thumbs, and subscribe. Toodles!